when we're trying to understand knowledge as a kind of object, or we're trying to convey the impression that the knowledge that we're communicating has some sort of objective quality, we do certain things with our speech, and we also expect certain things of those knowledge objects that we metaphorically create. Some of the things we do with speech are to do with the conditions under which a metaphor operates, and the dominant metaphor for objectivity, the object status of knowledge, is a visual metaphor, which knowing is seeing. So I know that to be a tree because I can see the tree, and so on. And when we're dealing with abstract knowledge concepts, we similarly use visual metaphors. And so the more apparent we want our metaphorical knowledge object to appear, the more we simulate in our language the conditions under which ideal seeing takes place. This is something I've spoken about before. So we talk about clear language, or we talk about talking directly, as if there's a clear line of sight and there's nothing obscuring that line of sight. We also talk about language being lucid or transparent, as if we can somehow raise clouds of fog in a way that would obscure our vision of the clear knowledge object. In addition to those, if you like, conditions in which seeing happens, we also have metaphors to do with the object itself and the status of that object. One I've already spoken about before is the metaphorical substance that the object appears to be made of. Hard knowledge is very different to fluid or slippery knowledge. It tends to have more clearly defined edges and so on. But also there are some metaphors to do with permanence and to do with fixity. Certainly in the real world, in the real visualized experience, knowledge objects appear more real, if that's the right word, if they obey a number of conditions. Firstly, they shouldn't disappear. They should stay around for a certain period of time. And the conditions of charmed quarks or something like that is abstract for all sorts of reasons, but one of the reasons is probably because they don't stay around terribly long. Example, it's going to go this way. But other objects, we regard stones and rocks and mountains, trees even, as clearly objects because they don't go away, at least not in the short term. Whereas objects that have a very ephemeral existence, we would be perhaps less inclined to think of as objects. In addition to that permanence, I think there's also a sense in which an ideal object shouldn't change its form. I think we would be quite disturbed about identifying an object as an object if it kept changing its shape and becoming something else. If things that do that tend to be either living creatures going through some sort of period of metamorphosis, and I think we'd be pretty disinclined to refer to those as objects for that reason, amongst other reasons. But also things that do change their form are really things like chimera, or mirages, or shapeshifters of legends, changelings. I don't think we're terribly happy about regarding those as prototypical objects, at least, if they are objects at all. So in addition to permanence, we also have permanence over time, also permanence and fixity in terms of not changing their shape. Also, I think we like our objects to stay still. We don't like them to move about too much. an object that's constantly shifting from place to place, constantly appearing and disappearing in different locations and contexts, we would, I suspect, find less object-like than one which was always in the same place. So those, I think, are the ideal, or some of the ideal conditions that prototypical objects in the visual world meet. I'm saying prototypical because, of course, many other things are objects, but in the category of objects, which displays an ephemerality, or which is a change of shape and so on, is probably more towards the periphery of that category. The last possible condition that a prototypical object would meet would be one of, I guess, fixity in space. Doesn't move about. I think, I said this? Yeah, probably already said it. But certainly knowledge which is nomadic is, this is something that Deleuze and Guattari talk about. Nomadic knowledge, like nomadic power, is kind of hard to pin down. Mika Bal writes about travelling concepts in one of her books called Travelling Concepts. And in that she traces the idea that certain concepts, certain knowledge objects, if you like, do indeed move from place to place, from subjectivity to subjectivity, from domain of knowledge to other domains of knowledge. And in many cases that is a problem. Terms like performativity, which migrated from the area to do with linguistics to a whole range of other places, is one such term. And when those concepts are allowed to travel or to become nomadic, their status as prototypical objects, knowledge objects in that case, does change also.